Here's some big news coming in. India has managed to make it to the World Test Championships finals. Big news as a nail-biter finish in Christchurch. Kiwis have beat Sri Lanka in a last ball thriller, and that puts India now to the finals. New Zealand has scored a winning run off the last ball. India now makes it to the World Test Championship finals as New Zealand now beat Sri Lanka. This is a big win for India, undoubtedly a big push rather. Good news for India as New Zealand there wins over Sri Lanka, pushing India now to the finals. And we cut across to Nikhil Naz joining us, our sports expert. Nikhil, what does this win for New Zealand over Sri Lanka mean for India?
Well, Nabila, I mean, as you mentioned, the biggest news for all Indian cricket fans at the moment is that India have qualified for the World Test Championship final. And just to put it into perspective, why this win of New Zealand is so important, because New Zealand were playing Sri Lanka, and New Zealand in that sense had no skin in the game because New Zealand couldn't qualify for the World Test Championship final. Sri Lanka could. So had Sri Lanka gone ahead and won this particular test match, then all that they needed to do was win the last test match at Basin Reserve, and from there on they would have gone through and not India. And that's keeping in mind the fact that the test match that is happening simultaneously in Ahmedabad between India and Australia is heading towards a draw. Had India won that test match, probably they didn't have to rely on this New Zealand result. But that particular test match now it's almost certain will be a draw because you just have about a session and a half left, and you've only seen effectively 2.5 innings of that test match. So no result possible there. So then it would be upon Sri Lanka's performance versus New Zealand, and if Sri Lanka had done well, they would have gone through. But thankfully for India, New Zealand have done them a favor, beating Sri Lanka, and what an exciting test match we got to witness. Any of the three results were possible, even going into the final over of that test match, but a masterclass by New Zealand captain Kane Williamson. What's really interesting, Nabila, here was that the last World Test Championship final was played between India and New Zealand. On that occasion, New Zealand denied India holding that championship trophy. But this time around, it's New Zealand that's beaten Sri Lanka and helped India actually reach the final, where they will be playing the team that they're playing currently in Ahmedabad, Australia. Australia have already qualified for that final. So mark that date in your calendar. It's going to be a big, big game. The final of the World Test Championship. Both teams, Australia and India, would be fighting for the right to be crowned as the Test champions of the world. That is going to be from 7th to 11th June at the Oval Cricket Ground in London. So that is a date now Indian cricket fans can look forward to after a very exciting test match that we witnessed between New Zealand and Sri Lanka. And remember, that test match at one point seemed like it could be heading for a draw because 4 hours, I beg your pardon, we had rain interruption. 4 hours of game was lost, but after that it was 50 odd overs to go. New Zealand needing about 200 odd runs. It effectively became a one-day match, and then the New Zealand batsmen played it like a one-day match. The star there, Kane Williamson, with 121 not out. He was there till the last ball. In fact, even at the last ball, when they needed that one run, he ran for it. There was an appeal for run out. It was very, very close. And by inches, he made that crease, Kane Williamson. And with that, New Zealand, of course, celebrated having won that particular test match. But do you know that after New Zealand's celebration, the next country that would have been celebrating at that time would certainly have been India, because they did India a favor.
All right. After Australian Prime Minister was down to watch the match with Prime Minister Modi, it seems like now we're going to see for real the match, the finals now between India and Australia. It means something, isn't it, Nikhil?
You know, we had the prime ministers of both the countries present in Ahmedabad on day one. Of course, it was also an extension of the India-Australia partnership. A lot of other deals were discussed on the economic front, on the defense front. And of course, cricket was also discussed, because these two teams now are powerhouses in the world of international cricket. And I think it's a fitting finale that will take place at the World Test Championship final, because if you're considering them the two powerhouses, then it's only natural that you expect the two powerhouses to be playing the World Test Championship final, and that's what you'll get to see between India and Australia. And I think Indian fans would just slightly relieved that that particular series will be taking place not on Indian soil but in England, because the series that we've seen so far between India and Australia have invited the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Primarily the pitch. In the first 3 test matches, there was a lot of criticism about the pitch, that no, this is not a sporting track, and suddenly you change the nature of the pitch in Ahmedabad, and what you've now got is a very dead, benign sort of a surface, which is not helping both teams push for a result, which is why you're going to be getting a draw right now. But as I said, thankfully New Zealand and the pitches that were prepared in New Zealand have helped you get a result, which has in turn helped India qualify for that World Test Championship final.
All right, Nikhil, thank you very much for joining us on that. Great news for India as it's now been pushed to the World Test Championship final.